Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again with a bit of a wrap up about the entire Sentinel League announcement. So did a bit of pretty large stream yesterday, 10 hours or something, and had to drink an entire bottle of wine for the patch notes and the fun afterwards. So yeah, I'm a bit late on this one. Sorry, I've been sleeping. So Sentinel League fully announced, and the big news here are basically two things. One, no real changes to your current builds, buffs, nerfs, anything like that. And two, huge Uber bosses and more content bosses, things to challenge your current builds against. The Sentinel League, as you can see in the background here, it looks okay. Like, it's hard to ever tell how impactful, how good a league mechanic is going to be without actually playing it. But in concept, it looks, like it'll be okay. Something pretty streamlined, pretty easy to interact with, maybe worth it, maybe not, and we just have to wait and see. So they've given new uniques, just a few, the ones that were designed by the community. They did put out some of the new bosses, or there will be new bosses, which are Uber bosses, and we'll go over everything that there is real quick, and hopefully I can diffuse some of your worries. May 13th, so about a week from right now. Okay, so we'll still start with talking a bit more about Sentinel and what they are and stuff and how they interact. Essentially, you have three different types of extra little follower things where you can use it to buff or just tag a bunch of enemies or tag a specific enemy, and then typically it gets harder to kill, and it also has some rewards associated with it. They all have like some different properties, they can have some different rewards, and you can consume them as you map, and once they're consumed you can use them to combine into other newer Sentinel things that might be more rewarding or more challenging, etc. So it's just a slight augment to some mob packs or some bosses, and some rewards based off of that as well. Like I said, seems like a mechanic where you'll either kind of find some good use for it, or maybe one or two specific good uses for it, stick to that, and just keep going and find some good rewards. Or, as a lot of these things are, you can just kind of ignore it and play the game as it is, regardless. So it shouldn't be too in your way either way. But it looks like it should be a good extra leveling tool. Buff a monster or two, get some good rewards out of it, and ultimately something that is pretty basic to start with, but can be a bit more complicated as things go on. Which is always good. Some league mechanics are very confusing right from the start, and you really don't know how they're going to be. Whereas this seems pretty basic, I think. And then you have a passive tree that you can interact with, if we get to see that somewhere. And once you do that, there it is. Not really a passive tree, like a conduit circuit Sentinel controller that lets you kind of customize how you're going to interact with the Sentinel. It might just be to speed shit up so it, does things faster, or you can do more of it, or better rewards. So we'll figure that out once we get there, but it looks pretty simple either way to navigate this sort of thing. So as always, the actual league mechanic isn't always the main draw for the brand new league, but in this case it's not a huge amount of extra content on top of that. We are also just getting some new bosses, so, well, I'm not sure it's necessarily super new bosses, but it's these guys all in their slightly more Ubified form. And that just means that they're all getting a bit harder, and then they've got a bit better rewards. And by the looks of it, it's essentially going to be similar to the Gauntlet and the boss versions there. So, Shaper might have extra projectiles, more area, they've got more life, shit like that. It seems pretty realistic if you've cleared Feared before. That's what Chris kind of makes it sound like it's going to be similar to the Feared, but problem is that you're learning a few new mechanics, so you might expect to, run your character into the grinder a few times before you kind of figure out what you're supposed to be doing. It does look like a nice piece of extra challenge. It is unfortunate that most builds are now going to be judged against these new bosses, so it's like, can your hipster 10 chaos build, clear Uber Elder and all that. And it's like, it's not exactly fair. It's pinnacle content. It should be something only your fine-tuned character that you're really happy with, your build that you went ahead and thought exceeded all expectations, can then take on and test itself against. You shouldn't measure every character and every build against this shit. But that's just my opinion. And, should all play how you want to play. But essentially, they are the new keystones on the Atlas tree that you just activate quickly and easily to try out the Uber version of a boss, so you don't have to like find it or grind towards it. It's just going to be ticket, and now your Cirrus is juiced, or Maven, or whatever. And it sounds pretty scary, pretty intimidating, but at the same time, it's something more to look forward to challenge and test your characters, especially since there aren't any real balance changes. And as such, I don't know if he talks about it in this shit. As such, without the balance changes, your characters and your builds should already be pretty well established, and you should know what you're going to be doing if you've already played the previous league. So that's the main thing there. Otherwise, they did talk about other Atlas endgame improvements. So there's going to be a few more keystones on the tree that let you customize how you build your Atlas, or how you interact with maps a bit more. So you can like kind of focus a lot more on pack size. You can focus a lot more on getting a specific map. You can focus entirely on a certain type of content. As opposed to previous types of content. You can make the entire game have more life and less damage, or more damage and less life. So they are really trying to kind of give you the control of how you want to map and influence your mapping and your progression and all of that. And that's pretty cool. So one of the big things here is that you can now take some passives that eliminate certain pieces of content you don't like seeing, or you wouldn't otherwise interact with. So, let's say a weekend, you've already got some of the oils from Blight and you really don't care about Blight anymore. Chances are you're just going to see it and run past it every single time. You can instead eliminate that, and then that'll just boost your chance to see the content you do like to see. So with a whole bunch of content out there at the moment from League Mechanics, that's pretty good news. You can eliminate a lot of it, and then maybe you can focus on just 2 or 3 things you really like doing. So that's a pretty good idea. And in general, a lot of these endgame improvements should really make your endgame and Atlas progression and maps that you farm and all that just a lot more desirable. And then ultimately you can get into a click and go, or alch and go, and just get rewarded for playing the game. It's really tough with this new Atlas system to not get rewarded for playing the game. You just focus on a few things you want to focus on, start playing, and eventually you're going to get some good results. And then, for things you need or things you don't need, and then you can sell to people that do need them. And it's pretty foolproof for everyone to get kind of rich with this type of thing. Just depends on how rich you're going to get. So that's the main thing to go with the Atlas Keystone passives, Uber Pinnacle bosses. Other endgame changes, the maps are going to be even more juiced. They decided that the altars for the current new bosses weren't quite impactful enough, or that it weren't enough of a decision-making process. You'd usually just click one of them and then fuck off, whereas they want you to make a pretty big decision, a trade-off, and then get some good power for it. So something that really impacts your character, but then ultimately you get more out of it. The couple of mini bosses got kind of rebalanced for just loot better, so they've dropped some more of their special currencies and stuff, which is good shit. This is to do with juicing maps a bit more, so you can now have more than one sort of pinnacle presence on a map. So you can have Shaper, Elder, or Shaper, yeah, probably Elder as well, I don't know. Many types of influence on a map. So you can have, Eater of Worlds, Hunter, and in this case Shaper or Elder, and like 3 or 4 influences throughout a map, which is going to just make maps pretty damn crazy. And then there's plenty of other Atlas Keystone stuff they go over, and customization towards your atlas. Some of the new endgame unique items that they've put into the game, these are the ones that were designed by people that won races. So Lighty has a few of them, and then Waggle, and then Steel Mage. Out of those, this one here looks like it'll be pretty damn strong. So it's a ring that you can even use at level 16, so very early for a super endgame sort of item. All damage will chill, all damage taken from hits can chill you, so it can be a self-chill thing, or you can just negate that pretty easily if you want. Enemies chilled by your hits can be shattered as though frozen, so now you can shatter corpses without needing actual freeze. And then enemies chilled by your hits lessen their damage dealt by half of chill effect, which can be pretty damn powerful for a damage reduction modifier. It's not super hard to get max amounts of chill with hits and all that. So that can be quite powerful, I think, and a very good overall item. Then I had Warcry Hat with some damage and stuff. I'm not really going to go over it, but it kind of should maybe be played into Ignite builds or things that capitalize off of rotating lots of Warcries before one big hit. And it's got pretty damn cool art. It's already in-game, 3D art. Kind of weird, kind of wacky, but looks cool. And then have the belt that really leans more into Inquisitor's kind of hybrid life energy shield style, and it'd be pretty damn good for it. So if you have a lot of life, a lot of energy shield, and you try and regen both at the same time and try and manage both at the same time, this type of item can be really good for it. Supreme Decadence lets you use your life flasks on energy shield as well, at a reduced rate though. So overall, should be a pretty thick belt and rather usable. We then had, what was it, 2 amulets here. I'm not sure if it's going to be particularly useful. It's going to really depend on the implicits you get, I think. But essentially, depending on who's more dominant of the 2 pinnacle bosses, critical strikes inflict malignant madness, which is like kind of a slow effect on enemies, I think, and or you can cult. So nothing too insane there, but it's going to depend on some of those implicits, I think. And then Steel Mage's item, which is a jewel that kind of lets you teleport across the tree, not entirely, but it should open up some real wacky combinations. So the jewel can spawn with like any any keystone on the tree, and then gives you a circle on that keystone from wherever you are. So it kind of just teleports you to that keystone, and you can take nodes all around that little circle. It does open up a few pretty powerful possibilities. From what we've looked at real quick, I guess I can, from what we've just had a quick tinker with and experiment with, can mention, if you take something like CI, for example, that's probably going to have some powerful ramifications, influence, additional curse, maybe arcing blows, arcane sanctuary. If you're somewhere like down over, balanced guard, you're going to get all the good juicy defensive shit, so like Soul of Steel and prismatic skin and max light res, max fire, get some life, that type of shit. So it can end up being pretty powerful for certain things. Jump to a Silent Life Wheel, yay. Eldritch Battery, nothing too special over there, I don't think, just a bunch of wanting shit. Might be able to skip you some stuff, but yeah, it's gonna open up some real nice possibilities for certain extra builds, and just a few different ways of building, I think. Might be very expensive. These are some new extra uniques that drop off the pinnacle bosses, or the Ooba pinnacle bosses. So a massive ring on Thread of Hope, and even bigger expansion on the Thread of Hope, and maybe that has some overpowered uses. Shaper Jewel that can disable other auras, but really empower a certain aura, and might be quite usable depending on what other things you can do. Maybe you can brittle with hatred or some shit, that sort of thing, but we'll see. Should be a pretty big one if there's a few good combos. And then Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flesh, so that's the ones that lets you take new ascendancies from other ascendancies and within your class, and they're going to be new ones apparently, so ones that we don't know what they do yet, that don't exist on the current class tree. Allocates 9 lives. Sounds kind of like a cheat death mechanic, but either way, if the current Forbidden Flesh and Flame have a few really strong ascendancy points that are very overpowered to have on other ascendancies, and they're very expensive, and these are the uber ones, you better believe they're going to do some crazy shit. So yeah, that's some new endgame uniques, new endgame fights, game balance in Path of Exile Sentinel, as we mentioned. There's basically nothing being changed. There's Chris Wilson. Basically nothing being changed from the current game. So all your builds will currently work, and other people's builds will currently work, so you can try them out if you missed out on them. Which is a bit different because we are very customarily used to getting changes or new skills or buffs, nerfs. And for me personally, I'm very much a gamer that loves a shifting meta. So to find out new things and to try out new builds and to get new skills and to have things buffed, to have things nerfed, that's definitely for me. So I was disappointed to not have that. I was looking forward to at least new skills, but basically what Chris said is that, yeah, there's going to be a whole bunch of endgame revamp, endgame stuff happening, and they can only focus on one thing at a time potentially, but it's more of an experiment to see just how impactful keeping things the same is, because it has been absolute years that we've, every single league got some new skills or some rotating meta buffs, nerfs, that sort of thing. And it's pretty much never happened that they're just letting us go into another league with full knowledge of what's going to happen with builds. So it will be interesting for us to see what that means for player longevity, player fun, and overall impact on a league, because they've given you a whole bunch of more control over your atlas, giving you more stuff to do in the end game, and on top of that, there's challenges that they've implemented. So the usual challenges, if we talk about it here somewhere, yeah, the challenge system there. The usual challenges that we have that go up to 40 can be completed, with a bit of work. This time around, they're making them harder and more of them. Focus on sort of real endgame-ish sort of grind potentially, and then you get rewarded more for them. So it'll be harder to complete your challenges, but you'll also get like a real fancy fucking armor set out of it. I should probably showcase that because it looked goddamn nice. So you can complete this one, and then if you do even more, you can complete that one. And for free armor sets, that's pretty crazy. That's about as good as an armor set's ever going to get. But it will be more of a grind and tougher to finish. And on top of that, they're also rebalancing what the current rare and magic monster sort of means. So they don't want to throw too many rebalances at a single time, just so you can know what the hell's happening. Because they wanted to kind of cut back on what rare monsters meant with all their modifiers and make them more telegraphed, so you know what you're fighting and what it's doing when you come across it. And so what they've done is basically scrapped the rare modifier system and put on the arch nemesis that we just then fought and did for a league on every rare. Anywhere from like 1 to 4 mods on them. Some of them are going to be really toxic and annoying and cancerous, and some of them are going to be pretty nothing. They have sort of like rebalanced them a bit, so they're not necessarily going to be as toxic as they used to be. But still, it can be potentially a bit of a game changer. So this is another experiment to see how things are going to go. We all hate this one. How things are going to go balance-wise, and you kind of have to have established builds for that. So that's essentially everything to do with game balance there, and the balance of our characters and all that. And as far as it's all concerned, like I said, I'd love new skills and I'd love a rotating meta and all that, but this is okay too. It's a pretty good meta at the moment. My only, hang up is I would have loved to see some nerfs to the real overpowered items, but it's not a big deal. Like, I hate that Omniscience exists, and I'd essentially be a dumbass for not using it on certain builds and certain skills and all that. I can't ignore it, and I have, and I can just make builds without it, but it's kind of a no-brainer play for most elemental builds, and to not use it, you just kind of feel like a bit of an idiot, and I don't really like that feeling, right? Just like missing out on the obvious scaling. So that's my only real hang-up there, but otherwise, it's probably enough about the entire announcement. Otherwise, I mean, it's fine. Like, the meta's pretty good right now. And as far as builds you can play, there are a lot. Like, people are saying, oh, but it's an old stale meta or some shit and it's figured out or something. I guarantee you, almost no one has played even half of the fun shit out there right now. I've played, I don't know, 10, 15 builds or something this league, and I had fun and discovered like new shit on just about every single one, and a lot of them were some of my favorite builds I've ever played, and I still had a fucking laundry list of builds I could have made and played, but want a new league to be able to do it. And it's great that you can go back and actually play some of these with just full knowledge that they're going to work. So of my list, like Deadeye, Ice Spear, Poison Spark, both of those were some of the funnest shit I've done long time. Building a Cum Storm will be pretty good for a start. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. The Explosive Concoction Sign, one of the funnest, strongest builds ever played. I loved Forbidden Right, but not going to be for everyone. Rage Vortex is pretty good, but once again, didn't completely love the mechanics around it. Ellie Buzzsaw Spectral Throw, I loved coming back to Spectral Throw, and this was a super strong build, so I may even make it as a starter, but have to revamp it quite a bit. And Molten Strike, Horror Champion, shit was good, shit was fun. Armageddon Brand hit really hard in the end, and it cleared Endgame like a breeze. And we can still do a lot more, and we can still incorporate a lot more Omnis, Ashes, do meta shit, do non-meta shit. There's still a lot to do, and there's still a lot of video game out there to play, even without a different meta. And I'm pretty sure, like, for example, it's a figured out meta or some shit. Spectral Throw was dead, and even I said it was dead, up until I played it like a few weeks ago. Then I was like, hey, this is actually insane right now, and my favorite build in the past like couple years or some shit. That's not a solved meta. That's, people not trying stuff enough, myself included, and writing things off. And there's still going to be things like that out there. In any case, I'll just go over the patch notes real quick. There's not much to say here, and the video's already been long enough. Overall, Sentinel looks like it should be... Actually, yeah. Sentinel looks like it should be pretty damn thick. I personally thought that with the current PoE endgame, current PoE system and game and mapping and all that, any league that we were going to get after last one that had some more improvements is probably going to be the best league we've ever had. Granted, I would have loved some new skills, but otherwise, there's some new crafting, there's some new things to fight, there's some new bosses to challenge. It should still potentially be the best league we've ever had, I think. And as far as patch notes, what do we got? I'm not sure there's really anything I have to specifically go over. Let me just scan it real quick. Yeah, I mean, this is all stuff we can figure out when we, actually look at the atlas for the new thing. Nah, it's whatever. Harvest has been put back on the Kirak map bench thing, so you can definitely target farm your harvest a bit better for finishing some items and crafting a few certain items your character's currently missing. And at 12C, it's pretty good. Like 100 chaos and you can run freaking 7 or 8 harvests or some shit, and that practically really strongly leans you towards building one certain type of item or finishing a certain type of item. Otherwise, as far as this is concerned, I mean, I think Domination's still pretty good, especially with the Shrine passives on the map passive tree, Atlas passive tree. So yeah, if you're unaware, taking some of the Shrine nodes and then this, it will essentially make you feel like you're wearing a headhunter in every single map, and pretty worth. It does get a bit too juicy though, so buyer beware. Otherwise, yeah, controller support, full controller support for PC if you're into that sort of thing. I haven't played with controller in 100 years, so it's not for me, but it should be pretty good, supposedly. And there's going to be a bunch of quality of life stuff. They're still going to list in the coming week. And then there's some supporter pack stuff as well. You guys can check that out by yourself. But they're just trying to go in a completely different direction for how normal supporter packs are gone, instead of like an armor set. there's a few quirky effects and things that happen based off of various events. So yeah, kind of effects. And it looks pretty cool. Boom. It's not going to be for everyone. I'll personally get a few of them, but not all of them, because I don't think I need all of them. But I do think some of them look pretty damn cool. So with that said, Sentinel League coming out soon. There we are. Sentinel League, real soon, about a week. I've got no idea for a cosplay. Please don't have any real expectation of me. Nothing could happen. Nothing good anyway. But otherwise, yeah, I think the league looks like it's going to be an absolute banger, and filling out the Atlas is a lot of fun. I expect many a long stream in the first few weeks, and game's looking as good as it's always been. Would love some rebalance, would love some new skills, wouldn't we all? But Chris did say that's happening next league for sure. 3.19, he says, has some already planned balances and all that. But for this one, we're just gonna ride some pretty good builds and see what the end game holds for us. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.